Now let's look at a practical example of a closure. So I'm going to come in over here and create a function, and I'm going to call it, let's say, make adder. And this is going to be a function that receives a parameter called x. This function will return another function, and this function I'm going to keep it anonymous because since I'm returning that function, there is no need to name the function. So over here, this function, this inner function, actually takes another parameter called y, and its job is to simply return x plus y. Now if you take a look at this, the inner function over here is a closure. The reason for that is that it fulfills two of our criterias. One is that this inner function receives an input from its lexical scope. So the variable x is not inside this particular function. It's not defined as a variable over here. It is actually not received as a parameter. It's actually received from its lexical scope, which is outside, which is this x over here. So that's one criteria. The second criteria for a closure is that it's an inner function. So that's what it is. So I've created this particular function, and let's see what this function does. Over here, I'm going to come over here and say const, let's say add2. I'm going to create a variable add2, and I'm going to set it equal to make adder. All right, I'm going to invoke this function make adder, and this make adder function, I'm going to pass a parameter 2, the number 2. So now pause over here and see what's happening over here. What's happening is that it's the same thing I'm writing over here as if I was writing like such. So slow down over here and see what I'm doing. So I'm actually replacing x with 2, and it's the same thing as if I'm writing this over here. Because when this particular function runs, it comes over here, and the job of make adder is to simply spit out this function and replace the parameter x with the value of 2 because x over here is 2. So it's the same thing as if I'm writing this. I'm going to comment this out, and now let's say I can make multiple variations of different functions. So I can call add2, I can say add, let's say 4, and so forth. I can make a million of these different functions from the make adder function. Okay? So now let's say if I want to do some mathematics, so I'm going to say console.log, and I'm going to say add 2, and what do I want to add with 2? Let's say I want to add 10. All right? So what's going to happen over here is when I refresh my browser, I'm going to get the value of 12. Because add2 function, when it runs, it's going to say, okay, 2 plus y is whatever parameter I pass to it, which is 10 in this case. So 10 over here plus 2 is 12. All right, so I'm going to refresh. And now, oh, I didn't save it, save. And refresh, and I get 12 over here. So nothing fancy here, but let's say if I actually make a copy of this console, and let's say call it add 4 over here. Save, refresh, I get 10 plus 4 is 14. So the idea is that with this particular function, we are creating multiple functions with pre-baked parameters, right? So this is a generic function, but since I'm using it as a closure over here, it has pre-baked parameters. So I can make multiple variations of the functions from one function and use it in multiple places. So this technique, this the adding technique would be very helpful. Let's say if you were making a calculator, you could actually bake in the previous value and then actually provide a new value that the user has provided, and then do the addition, do the multiplication, do the division, whatever activity you want to do. So that's pretty much it for this video. This is a very practical example of using closures, and I'm going to talk to you in the next.